computer now pulls it up. So it should be.
Okay, so to display sent request, if we ignored the fact that there's diffing going on, just to get this data, that's going to be the evidence.request field.
Okay, evidence not required.
And the thing that's different about this is currently only the headers are being displayed in the box. And we're going to change that to display, we're going to kind of recreate the first request line, which is that post, path, and HTTP 1.0, 1.1.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to, at the bottom after the headers, we're going to append the body field to this.
Okay.
And so basically what you're doing is you're reconstructing the HTTP message as it would look going out over the network to show it in all its beauty.
Okay, so it's 3 parts. So in the field you had discussed, so for here it's pretty easy because I'm just kind of constructing the string and then showing it. Okay.
Yep. So if you go back to the that API screenshot I gave you.
Yeah, you know what? Let me just pull it up here and then drag it over.
Yeah, maybe if we could split screen it or something.
There. Oh, can you see it, or is it not showing?
Yeah, I can see it. Okay, so if we look at that request section there, and we have body, headers, method, and your URL.
Mm-hmm.
The way this will work is the very first line will be method space URL. And then the next several lines will be the headers array where you're going to say the name value colon space and the value field.
Okay.
At the end of that, you're going to append that body field to it.
Okay.
And so let me show you I can give you an example of what it should look like here. Why don't you let me share my screen?
Okay.
And let me pull up where are the demo projects? Analyzers, demos. So what I'm going to show is how we currently provide data to the users, which is via the test tab. So here are some fuzzing results as they work now. And so if I pull this up, this is going to have a lot of the information that we're going to want to put into that screen. And so like here's like the request off of evidence where we have like get.
Sorry, sharing your screen. Sorry, it wasn't.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry about that. Where's my share screen button? Okay. So I have some fuzzing responses. This is how our JUnit outputs. Right now, it just outputs as this ugly text blob. Mm-hmm. And this is what this is some of the data we're gonna end up putting in. So when we go to display, so here's an example. Here, if we go to display these messages, you know, like for the response, we're going to reconstruct what the message looks like, where we're going to have, you know, we're going to construct this line with the status code and the status message. We'll construct the headers listing from the headers array where it's the name, colon, space, and the value. We're going to append after a blank line, the body. So you notice that there's a line feed between the headers and the body here. For the request, the same thing is going to go on. We're going to have method, space, URL, path. And we're not currently capturing the HTTP version, so we can exclude that for now. And then we'd go and do our header array. And then this one doesn't have a body, but if there was, it'd be a return, and then the body would be stuck in there.
So which, this actual request, what form field was it in the JSON response we had, just so I can match them up? Because I think that's where I'm getting confused. We have request, response, and then supported messages, I think, and then
So actual request, this is the data that was sent as the test, and this maps to evidence.request.
Okay.
And so this will be the one that we mainly want to display.
Is there?
And we also want to display the response.
I'm looking
Sorry?
at the response sample that was sent. I don't know if that's up to date because I'm not seeing evidence dot. I see an evidence field and it's just a string, and I see evidence underscore source, but I don't see evidence dot response.
Let's see if I have that MR handy to show. So, I mean, the format should be, in that listing, that screenshot I sent you, the top level request and response, which pre-existed our changes. That's what this actual request and response fields are.
Okay. Okay. So actual request response are those top level request response fields that are existing already. Okay.
And then like this original request, this is in supporting messages.
Okay. Okay. And then
we're not going to display it. We're going to diff it.
Okay.
And then we have this recorded request and response. And this will show what a correct calling of this API looks like, meaning this is something we recorded the proper calling and a proper response. And the use of this is so the user can then look at these and see what's supposed to happen compared to what actually happened and then make a decision. So in the UI, when we show active response, next to it, we have recorded response. There's like 2 responses being shown. The second one, the recorded one, is coming out of that supporting messages. It's this recorded response. And I believe our plan is to do a diffing view on that as well.
Yeah, for the follow-up version. But for MVC, there's the 3 fields: sent request, the unmodified response, and an actual response. Okay. I think is that it? I think I'll re-review this video recording to make sure I understand, and I might have a follow-up question too if it's not clear, because I think the struggle I had was mapping through each of these 3 fields, and I think you've kind of covered that. Let me show, can you see my screen? Is it this one?
Yep.
Yeah, it was like mapping these 3. I get it, like how we're building the response, and I think you covered each one of these maps to the
right. So just real quick, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Sent request maps to the top level request.
Okay.
In here. So yep, that one right there.
Okay.
And then the unmodified response. This is the wording is a little weird, but that's going to map to recorded in supporting messages.
Okay. Perfect.
And then the actual received response is going to map to the top level response.
Okay, that was the tricky thing. Okay. Okay, perfect. That's all I needed. That clears things up, and then I'll be able to build the messages based off of the other fields that are in there. So it's fine because we're constructing each row of that text anyway, because we're constructing the header. So I'll be able to inject what we need in there. The diffing stuff is going to be a follow-up issue that Sam has already given the thumbs up to kind of descope for MVC, and I think that's pretty much it. What about location? I don't know.
So real quick, go back over to the prior screenshot there. So one thing I do want to point out is, Camellia, when she mocked this up, has that operation : word in the sent request. We do not want that in the final version.
Where?
So for that see in sent request, the first line is operation : post.
Oh, okay.
So we don't want operation : we just want post path in there.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks. That clears it up. I should be able to knock this out today. It should be straightforward in terms of now that I have the data is available and I just need to construct the strings to do each line item there. And in terms of timing, I don't know what's the best way to do this with what you're blocked on. So my understanding with the work, I know you had elaborated on the issue, but it was that you need the front end needs to be in place before we can deploy your part, because what happens if can I ship the front end first? Like if I have the front end merged in, it shouldn't break anything, right? Because there's nothing to show.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then,
absolutely. You can merge it safely, and then I'll flip the switch.
okay. And when your merge request goes in, I guess it'll turn it on. And then since we're not using a feature flag, if it makes the cutoff for the GitLab.com and self-managed, I guess, is that enough time? Like ideally, when does my stuff need to be in master to give you enough time for code review and getting your stuff in?
I imagine the code review will go pretty quick.
Okay.
So the only thing that I'm doing that has to go through code review is the CI template.
Okay.
And it's going to be like a one-line change, I want to say.
Okay.
I'm going to basically just change the report name. Most of the bigger changes, basically all I need to do in the template is change from, report JUnit to report API fuzzing and the file name.
Okay.
So that should go through pretty quick.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
My MRs go through fast.
Okay, that's fine. I think to give you context, if I get an MR up today and it goes up into review later this evening, Mark is in Europe time zone, so he may be able to look at it tonight. And then maybe if all things go to plan, maybe Monday, hopefully Tuesday at the latest, for the UI to actually merge into master, because I might have to write additional unit tests and stuff. But so Monday, hopefully Tuesday at the latest. And if that timeline seems reasonable, I guess I'm just trying to plan for it. Or if we need to let the team know, like, hey, we'll be able to get it to GitLab.com, but for self-manage, it may slip. But
yeah, and I think that's probably reasonable. If that happens, it happens. I'm not going to be too stressed about it.
Okay. Right.
Also, to add a little more complexity, I don't know if you saw our discussion on that ticket with Neil, but we want to have the dashboard and the MR widget done before we merge that ticket in.
Oh, really? Okay, so before we enable this, we need the MR widget and security dashboard also in there?
Yeah, and the logic for that is, right now, the amount of information we're giving in the JUnit report makes it actionable. But if we don't have that additional information in, then it's going to become unactionable. So we don't want the customer to go from usefulness to unusefulness.
So, no, that makes sense. So do you know where that left off with Neil? That he's like, okay, we're going to hold off on that? Because then for my stuff to go in, I might have to do a front-end feature flag. Because the concern was that they didn't want to add API fuzzing as a selectable dropdown if there's not going to be any way to surface API fuzzing data on security dashboard.
Okay.
So just fine. It's not hard for me to do. It's just.
I thought our discussion on that is that Sam said it would be okay for it to be in the dropdown initially. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't. We can double check. But if we need to do a feature flag, I suppose we can do that.
Okay.
What's your plan to get the MR details page to the same state?
Yeah. So that is scheduled for next milestone, because. Okay. Yeah, because there's we're basically going to do what we did for coverage fuzzing, where we duplicate. There's a lot of front end code boilerplate setup that, like, I already know what I need to do, and we have a plan for that. But the plan was to do it next milestone, because it's definitely not going in this one. So it matters to me. So I need to communicate to Neil that, like, hey, we'll do the work for this, but we're not turning it on till the next milestone. Just a lot of the times it's like, if stuff doesn't go in, he's always drilling me like, wait, what happened? Why didn't we communicate that? I'm like,
yep.
All right.
So I'll make sure that Sam understands the milestones that we're talking about.
Okay.
But I think, like, in terms of, like, my stuff, it's fine. I feel like for me, it's fine if it holds off. There's nothing super, like, for me, my big driver is hitting milestones for the acquisition. And I think that my work has already been accepted for that. In fact, Seth might have reached out to you to ask about it. So I'm okay with it holding off a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, no, they haven't. So, okay, that's fine. So will you follow up on the issue and let them know, or is that something I need to?
Yeah, I'll follow up with Sam and just make sure he understands the timeline we're talking about.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's fine. In the meantime, then, I'm going to continue forward, but so it sounds like right now the plan is that because we need this stuff in the MR widget, and that includes the modals that are also part of the MR widget, which pulls in from the same vulnerability screen that we're doing here. So we're holding off on that. But so what I'll do is I'll continue forward and I'll put the front end behind the feature flag. So it's not showing up in the drop down, because until your part comes in, we kind of want to do this all together. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Thanks so much.
Do you want to stop recording? I had one more thing I wanted to talk about.